UFC Fight Night Vegas 50, Santos versus Ankalaev takes place this weekend, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main events, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card, and what an amazing card this is. Stacked top to bottom, this is what I call a real Fight Night card, and this should be expected every single weekend. Let's start straight away with the early prelim opener of Tafon and Nchukwi versus Azamat Murzakhanov. I'm going to start straight away with Azamat Murzakhanov here. I think he's a favourite for a reason. He's a very, very promising contender. Beat some good opponents. Laid a guy out cold in his last fight and the fight before that. He's got really nasty hands. And this is a light heavyweight bout as well. So he's going to have a bit of an advantage here over Tafon and Nchukwi. I think he's a bit more of a physical opponent than Tafon and Nchukwi. Although Tafon and Nchukwi does have a good chance to win this one, because we haven't really seen Azamat Murzakhanov tested yet. I think is so dangerous on the feet that I'm going to trust him to beat Tafon and Nchukwi here. Maybe by first round TKO. Tafon and Nchukwi plays the stand-up game as well. Has some very good stand-up of his own, but I think there's a massive power difference in the favour of Azamat Murzakhanov. He's not the tallest of guys, but he really does pack a punch, and he also has grappling to fall back on, Sambo background. I mean, there's a video of him online in a Sambo competition against Yadong, another top 20 ranked light heavyweight in the UFC. He might even be ranked in the top 15 right now, and he absolutely beat the shit out of Yadong in that fight. I don't know if you've watched it, but it was a really good performance from Azamat Murzakhanov, plus all of his performances so far in his pro career. There's just a look to him whilst he's fighting for a guy at light heavyweight. The guy knows exactly what he's doing, the way he turns over his punches, the way he fires angles for his shots as well. I think I'm going to go with Azamat Murzakhanov by first round KO. Moving on up the card, Kris Moutinho versus Guido Cannetti. Tapology has like 80% of people picking Kris Moutinho here. He is the favourite. I think he's going to grow as the favourite as the week goes on, because I think a lot of people are going to put money on him just because he's a bigger name now since that loss to Sean O'Malley. So I'm going to wait until I put some money on Guido Cannetti as an underdog here against Kris Moutinho. I get that he took punishment for 3 rounds against O'Malley, but he's absolute garbage at fighting. So I'm going to go with Guido Cannetti here. He looked quite good in his last performance against Manny Martinez, who also had a good performance against Ronnie Lawrence. I think Guido Cannetti's pretty underrated. I just watched back his Marlon Vera fight a couple of days ago, and my word, he was dominating Marlon Vera in the first round, winning the grappling exchanges, and just winning very comfortably in the first round against a guy like Marlon Vera, which is not easy to do. Marlon Vera is a very top-level guy. Guido Cannetti's a tough veteran with a lot of experience. I know he got KO'd by Dana Batgarel. I don't see him getting KO'd by Kris Moutinho. I see this being a grinding fight, and I think in a grinding fight I'm going to trust Guido Cannetti. Maybe Moutinho can make the improvements now that he's full-time into MMA, and he got that fight of the night paycheck of $75,000 in his last contest against Sean O'Malley, but I'm going to trust in Guido Cannetti with his great grappling skill to take this to the ground and just beat up Kris Moutinho on the ground, maybe to a TKO win later on or a submission. I'm going with Guido Cannetti as an underdog, and I'm going to wait a little bit as well until more people put money on Moutinho because he's a bigger name. Guido Cannetti gets this one done as the underdog. Moving on up the card, Dalcha Lungiambula versus Cody Brundage. I was hesitant on maybe picking Cody Brundage here, but I'm going to go with Dalcha Lungiambula. Cody Brundage does have a grappling background, so that could be interesting against a guy like Dalcha Lungiambula, of course, wants to keep things standing. However, Dalcha Lungiambula has shown an ability to scramble well in certain situations, find his way back onto top in certain situations as well. He doesn't get ragdolled in his contests. I mean, even Ankalaev got 1 of 3 takedowns against him and opted to do things on the feet instead. So if he really had a massive hole in his grappling, I think after the first 2 failed takedowns, maybe Ankalaev would have maybe like thought to himself, you know what, I'm going to keep going into the grappling because this guy's got a hole. But he didn't opt to grapple with Dalcha Lungiambula. He wanted to stand up. So I think I'm going to go with Dalcha Lungiambula here, stuffing takedowns against Cody Brundage and landing some good ground and pound or Travis Brown elbows. We saw William Knight be able to stuff the takedowns of Cody Brundage on the Contender Series, find his way onto top and land some big shots there. And I think it's going to be a very similar situation here against Dalcha Lungiambula. Pretty old guy at this point, 34 years of age, just took a lot of damage against Marc-Andre Barriault, but showed great cardio against Marc-Andre Barriault. So I'm going to say that Brundage may control him in certain moments in the early rounds, but I'm going to say that Dalcha Lungiambula actually shows off some good cardio and comes back towards the end of the second or the third on a gassed out Brundage who hasn't got what he wanted from the grappling, and I think Dalcha gets this one done by third round TKO with elbows to ground and pound. Moving on up the card, Sabina Mazo versus Miranda Maverick. I am going to go with Miranda Maverick here over Sabina Mazo. I think Miranda Maverick's got a good grappling advantage here. Maybe on the feet, Sabina Mazo could cause some problems. She's a very long and rangy women's flyweight. She could cause some problems on the feet here. But I think the difference maker is going to be the grappling of Miranda Maverick. We saw Sabina Mazo held down pretty easily against Alexis Davis. I know that's a different story. Alexis Davis is a veteran, but I do believe Miranda Maverick has enough wrestling chops in her arsenal to get this to the ground if she needs to and start working Sabina Mazo on the mat. Because so far, when people take down Sabina Mazo, she doesn't seem to be able to find her way back up to her feet, especially in that fight more recently against Alexis Davis. She's got good stand-up, but I think Maverick's going to mix it up, get the grappling going, and start dominating her on the ground as the fight goes on. So I'll call her Miranda Maverick 30-27 over Sabina Mazo. Maybe a rear naked choke at some point. Of course, Agapova got a rear naked on her, but that was, of course, after dropping her beforehand, so I'm not really going to look too much into that. But I'm going to go with Miranda Maverick, using her grappling at least to get the job done over Sabina Mazo, and that grappling is going to be the difference maker in this matchup. Moving on up the card, Damon Jackson versus Kamuela Kirk. Again, loads of people on Tapology and loads of people online are picking Damon Jackson here over Kamuela Kirk as an underdog. I just don't see it, man. I'm going with Kamuela Kirk. I'm going against the online experts again here. I'm going with Kamuela Kirk. I think he's got a really good ground game on bottom, which is a big deal here because Damon Jackson, of course, is going to be looking to get this to the ground. I think a massive stand-up advantage goes to Kamuela Kirk in this matchup. And I think a lot of people are looking at the fact that maybe Mckinney took down Kamuela Kirk, ended up on top, and just sort of controlled him on the ground. But what they don't realize is Kamuela Kirk was working off the bottom the entire time, landing good shots on the bottom, and not letting Mckinney really get anything going on the ground whatsoever, or pass over his guard or anything like that. He's got submissions off of his back in his career. He's got a triangle choke over a capable opponent in his career off of his back. He fought guys like Billy Quarantillo and Bruno Souza before they even got to the UFC in his come up, and he lost to those guys, which isn't bad. He's only 27 years of age. He's still got a lot to improve on. So I'm going to go with Kamuela Kirk. We haven't seen him on a full camp yet. We didn't even see him on a full camp in the Contender Series, which is why he gassed out against Billy Quarantillo. We didn't see him on a full camp in his debut. In his last fight against McQuan, and he still out-hustled Mckinney. So I'm going to say that he out-hustles Damon Jackson in a Condit Matt Brown style and gets this done via decision 29-28 in very close fashion, but they're going to look towards the damage of Kamuela Kirk more than the control time of Damon Jackson. Kamuela Kirk gets this one done. Moving on up the card, Trevin Jones versus Javid Basharat. I was thinking maybe a Trevin Jones pick, but I'm going to go with Javid Basharat here. I like his chances a little bit more. I like his grappling-heavy approach that he showed in the Contender Series. I think that's what's really being the difference maker here. If I saw him mess around on the feet a little bit too long, maybe I could pick Trevin Jones to catch him on the chin, like he did to Timo Valiev and, of course, Mario Batista as well. But after watching Trevin Jones' last performance and watching him get swarmed by Said Yakub Kakramanov, I think I'm going to trust in Javid Basharat to equally use that grappling to his advantage against Trevin Jones. Showed great grappling on the Contender Series, great grappling throughout his career so far, and I think he'll keep it going. Plus, very young guy, still a lot to improve on in his career, still a lot of experience to gain. Is there a bit of octagon jitters? Maybe yes, but he's a grappling-heavy guy, knows how to keep top control and do his work there. So I'm going to trust in Javid Basharat to out-grapple Trevin Jones and get this one done by decision 30-27, controlling Trevin Jones every single round. I don't see Jones getting finished though. Moving on up the card, JJ Aldridge versus Gillian Robertson. Again, loads of people picking Gillian Robertson here. I'm taking JJ Aldridge. I'm going against the grain again here. JJ Aldridge, I believe, gets this one done. She's very consistent. She don't get held down by no one, and when she does get taken down, she pops right back up. She hasn't been taken down since 2019, I believe, where she got taken down once by an opponent, and she popped up within 20 seconds, right back up to her feet. It's not like the ground game is her problem, and I think on the feet, she's quite capable. She trains with Rose Namajunas and Valentina Shevchenko, great women's fighters to get some work in against, especially the champion of your own division, women's flyweight. So I'm going to go with JJ Aldridge getting this one done against Gillian Robertson. I like JJ Aldridge. I think she's got good stand-up. I know she lost to Macy Barber, but she was winning that fight beforehand and doing very well. I'm going to trust in JJ Aldridge to get this one done. Capable on the feet, very tough, Very difficult to put away by submission, and I think she'll win this one. Because of that, I don't see Gillian Robertson being able to utilize her grappling against JJ Aldridge, so I can just see JJ Aldridge getting the better of things on the feet for 3 rounds, and maybe getting like a TKO in the later rounds. Let's not forget, I believe Gillian Robertson lost by TKO to Barber. Maybe I'm forgetting that one, but either way, Aldridge, I think, is consistent enough and has good takedown defense enough not to get grounded out by Robertson and find her way back onto top if she does get taken down, or find her way back up to her feet. And I think that's going to be the difference maker here. Very good on the feet, very composed, good chin. I think she gets this one done against Gillian Robertson, grinding out a decision with a great fight, or maybe a late rounds TKO. Moving on up the card, Matthew Semmelsberger versus AJ Fletcher. This is a good one. AJ Fletcher, of course, got the flying knee KO on the first season back of the Contender Series, or the first week and episode back of the last season of the Contender Series. He opened up the card with a storm, with a flying knee. Had a big moment there on the first episode back that took the headlines. Very good flying knee KO from him. But I still am going to go with Matthew Semmelsberger here, because AJ Fletcher, it tells me a lot about what your coaches think about you based on who you're taking on. He fought absolute cans for the majority of his career until going into the Contender Series. He eventually did get a KO in the Contender Series, but he took a couple of shots on the Contender Series. Some clean shots on the Contender Series on the chin as well. And it showed me a bit of a lack of understanding of range. This is his debut in the UFC. He's a young guy. He's got a lot of pressure on him as well. Semmelsberger's been here already. He's taken on Chaos Williams. He ain't worried about being KO'd. He stood toe-to-toe with Chaos Williams and gave Chaos Williams his toughest fight yet outside of his one loss to Mikael Pereira in the UFC. So I'm going to trust in Matthew Semmelsberger being too physical, too big for AJ Fletcher. He's a massive guy for the welterweight division. Plus, when I watch AJ Fletcher not really understand distance too much, get caught a couple of times on the Contender Series, I like the fact that Matthew Semmelsberger has an 8-inch reach advantage over AJ Fletcher. Very short arms on Fletcher. I can see Semmelsberger catching him coming in with a big counter shot. He caught Chaos Williams coming in reckless with big counter shots as well. Chaos Williams showed a great chin. I don't know if AJ Fletcher has the same level of chin. So I'm going to go with Matthew Semmelsberger backing up hook KO as AJ Fletcher closes the distance, puts him out cold. Semmelsberger by first round KO is what I'm going to go with there. I really like Semmelsberger. I think he's a good prospect, and hopefully he can start moving up the division after this win. I just don't think AJ Fletcher is ready for this level of opponent yet. Toughest guy he's taken on in his career, plus all the octagon jitters, plus Semmelsberger's got one-punch KO power, and is coming off a big amount of momentum after some really good first-round finishes. Moving on to the main card of this event, which features Alex Pereira versus Bruno Silva. I'm going to go with Alex Pereira here over Bruno Silva. I'm going to pick him by KO, probably in the first round. Check hook on Bruno Silva. I was maybe considering the idea of picking Bruno Silva by KO on the ground or submission, because he has shown some ability on the ground. At least I thought that, but I watched back the fights. He didn't even get down Wellington Terman. He failed his takedowns, but found his way on top due to a weird scramble, then landed the shots that he needed to. And I watched him also, although he showed great grappling defense against Andrew Sanchez, he got ragdolled by Andrew Sanchez. And Andrew Sanchez doesn't ragdoll people. You know what I mean? He doesn't use his grappling in the majority of cases to his success. I mean, he opted to KO Terman on the feet rather than grapple with him. But Andrew Sanchez even then was able to sort of manhandle Bruno Silva for the majority of that fight before gassing out later on. I think this is going to be a stand-up contest, and I think Bruno Silva is going to be itching to get after Alex Pereira. It's going to be his downfall. He's going to be hesitant when he needs to go, and when he needs to go, I think he's going to be hesitant. And I think Alex Pereira is going to put one on his chin. There's an aura around Alex Pereira that gives him an advantage. Plus, he's training with Glover in his grappling defense. He showed good awareness on the ground against Andreas Michailidis. So if this does go down there, I don't see him losing, because he showed good awareness. He was calm. He was breathing through his nose, getting wrist control, staying safe, staying in good positions. I don't see Bruno Silva getting into the ground. He's failed many takedowns in his career. Hasn't yet used grappling to his advantage in his entire career in the UFC. So I'm going to go with Alex Pereira, catching him with a check hook rushing in round one. Alex Pereira gets this one done after chewing up the legs of Bruno Silva, making him want to do something back. Catching him with a check hook. Pereira gets it done. Moving, and also Pereira's fucking massive. That's a big deal. And long reach as well. So I'm going with him. Massive long reach. And against a kickboxer the level of Alex Pereira, you don't want to be giving up too much reach. You know what I mean? So I'm going to go with Alex Pereira here. KO in the first round. I think he's got a really good chance. However, it is a dangerous matchup. So there isn't, you know, we don't know too much against Pereira yet. He's already lost in his career. He got submitted, so we don't know. But I'm assuming the grappling is being improved since training with a great guy like Glover Teixeira, who's bigger, who's the best grappler arguably at light heavyweight. So I'm going to go with Alex Pereira getting this one done with ease in the first round. But it's risky. Moving on, up the card, Drew Dober versus Terrence Mckinney. I'm going to go with Terrence Mckinney as an underdog here. I didn't know what I was going to do, so I was pretty 50-50 on this matchup, but I saw Terrence Mckinney as quite a sizable underdog. I think some places even have Drew Dober as a 2-1 favourite over Terrence Mckinney, and I just don't like that whatsoever. I'm not picking Drew Dober under those odds. It's a 50-50 fight, in my opinion. Can Terrence Mckinney do what he's been doing to other guys to a guy like Drew Dober? I think he's got really good grappling, really good stand-up. I think there's a lot for Drew Dober to worry about, and I would worry at some points maybe Dober can catch him in the first round and KO him brutally. He has got good power, and he's got a good chin, and he's tanky, and he can put you in trouble early on in the fight. I like that Terrence Mckinney has been ridiculously active, because that means there's not going to be too much jitters in that first round to where maybe Dober can catch him on the chin, making some mistakes. So I like that he's been active. Dober hasn't been too active, took a war loss to Brad Riddell where he took a lot of damage in that fight. And one thing I do want to point out in that fight is Brad Riddell, a striker from CKB, was able to ground out Drew Dober in certain moments where he needed to, even whilst being semi-concussed. He got cracked by Drew Dober, shot a bad takedown, but still managed to sort of tenaciously fight his way through to end up getting on top of Drew Dober on the ground. Dober's got a good ground game, he's weirdly strong, but I think Terrence McKinney's scrambles are going to mitigate that strength. We just saw this with Covington Masvidal. Masvidal, the bigger, brawlier guy, bigger guy for the division, more muscle mass on him, but the scrambling etiquette of Covington was able to lead him to control the position and keep his body weight over him. And I think that's what Terrence McKinney's going to do here against Drew Dober. Although Dober might be tankier and might be able to force his way back up, McKinney's scrambles are going to get the better of it. He showed great scrambles against Faresiam, and I think he's going to get this one done against Drew Dober. It's my underdog of the main card. Good one from Terrence McKinney. I think he gets this one done via, we'll say decision. Tough decision, I reckon. Dober's going to tough it out, not get finished. He was difficult to finish, especially against Islam Makhachev. And I think Terrence McKinney's going to grind him out to a decision, 30-27, winning the top control positions. Not an exciting fight by any means, but I think he wins it by doing that. Plus, he's dangerous on the feet, so Dober still has to worry about that. Moving on, up the card, Khalil Roundtree versus Carl Roberson. The man who can never be on the prelims ever, Khalil Roundtree. We get it, you went on JRE once, so now you're forever on main cards. Really annoying, but either way. Khalil Roundtree, Carl Roberson, evens fight. Stand-up contest, let's be real. Roberson has shown some ability to grapple with opponents. I believe he's shown a great grappling ability back at UFC St. Petersburg or Moscow against a Roman Kopylov. Was able to take him down in certain moments. But I'm going to go with Khalil Roundtree here. I think he's big enough, strong enough to stop the grappling of Carl Roberson, which isn't too great to begin with if he does opt to go in that route. But if they stand on the feet with each other, I definitely think Khalil Roundtree's got a big advantage on the feet. Much better stand-up. And I reckon he gets this one done by KO. Round 2, something like that. I'm going to go with Khalil Roundtree, pulling the trigger a little bit more than he did in his last fight against Marcin Prachnio and landing bigger, powerful shots on Carl Roberson and gaining respect that way until a TKO finish. Khalil Roundtree gets this one done. Moving on, up the card, Sodiq Yusuff versus Alex Caceres. I'm going to go with Sodiq Yusuff here. Worried about it, though. Alex Caceres is always a good underdog to put money on. I didn't think he was going to beat Sung Woo Choi. He beat Sung Woo Choi. He was supposed to fight Giga Chikadze. That might have been an upset coming that we wouldn't have seen. Like, he might have took his back, choked him out. You never know. But I'm going to go with Sodiq Yusuff over Alex Caceres. The reason being is Sodiq Yusuff shows a level of maturity beyond his years in grappling situations. We saw this against Andre Fili. Very calm, keeps a good base, doesn't really give up dominant position too much, is able to stay on top in grappling situations, stays calm when people are going for things on him. Even against Arnold Allen, Allen couldn't keep him down. And also we saw against Andre Fili, Fili couldn't really do anything with the grappling. Sodiq showed great sprawls, kept his back from being taken. sprawled out, got dominant positions, landed good shots. It was a close fight with Philly, but Philly's a very well-rounded featherweight, and I think that there's going to be a stand-up difference here in terms of power with Sodiq Yusuff against Caceres. Maybe Caceres could land some, like, wild kick that lands on Sodiq Yusuff and rocks him. We saw Arnold Allen was able to land kicks at the end of combinations against Sodiq Yusuff, so maybe that could be a factor here. If this was closer in odds, I wouldn't even bat an eyelid at it, but Caceres is such a big underdog, it's worth maybe putting some money on him, but I don't know. He shouldn't be that big of an underdog. That's my main opinion. I don't think he's going to win, but in no way should he be that big of an underdog, and there's a good chance that he could win. However, he still got rocked against Sungwoo Choi in the first round badly. I had a brain fart there. But Sodiq Yusuff, much more patient on the feet, much more composed. He's very composed as a fighter in general. I don't think he's going to get too wild and give up any position. Sungwoo Choi kind of overthrew his shot and had his back taken. I think Sodiq Yusuff's going to stay more composed, chop at the legs early maybe, go to the body, and I think he'll land some good shots upstairs when he needs to get maybe like a second round KO win over Alex Caceres. But I think it's going to be a fun contest while it lasts, and a very dangerous contest for Sodiq Yusuff as well. But I still think he prevails and gets the job done by second round KO is what I'm going to go with. Moving on up the card, Marlon Moraes versus Song Yadong. That chin has had it. Marlon Moraes. I'm going to go with Song Yadong here over Marlon Moraes. I do believe that Song Yadong's going to have a massive advantage early on, just in terms of confidence to trade with power shots. Marlon Moraes is still dangerous, and we saw even against Merab Dvalishvili, he can still land good shots on the feet that are going to crack you and put you down. Marlon Moraes always has that ability. But where's his confidence levels at right now? Because he's been KO'd so many times in his previous fights. And if you thought his chin was shattered after he got beat by Sandhagen, beat by Rob Font, and didn't show a great chin whatsoever, he took a mauling and a beating against Merab Dvalishvili, a career-changing beating in that fight where he took so many big shots on the ground, whilst unconscious in certain moments. Merab still raining down big shots. If I had to go, like, blow for blow, Song Yadong, Marlon Moraes, I trust Yadong's chin better. I think he's got the option to grapple offensively more than Moraes does. I don't see Moraes grappling offensively here. Maybe Yadong could surprise him with some grappling offensive. But I think if it's on the feet, which I most likely think it will be, and they're both trading power shots with each other, Yadong's younger, he's more confident, he has no questions about his chin, no worries whatsoever, so I think he's going to commit with more effective technique than Marlon Moraes, who's going to be a little bit too hesitant, and I can see a Song Yadong brutal first round KO here, like he did to Alejandro Perez, just laying Marlon Moraes down badly, and I think this is going to be a big coming out party for Song Yadong. I think he's a great fighter, a lot of experience now as well. It's not like he's an upcoming prospect. I know he's young, I think he's like 23, 22, I know he's young, but he's not like some upcoming green prospect. 18-5, had his fights against Marlon Vera and other tough guys in the division, so I think this isn't going to be like a big shocking moment for him where he's worried about it. So I'm going to go with Song Yadong over Marlon Moraes, first round KO, brutal fashion, end of Moraes' career, start of Song Yadong's surgence towards the top of the bantamweight division. Moving on to another fight on the card, Thiago Santos versus Magomed Ankalaev, the main event of the evening. Big matchup in the light heavyweight division. Is there a title shot on the line? I highly doubt it. I highly doubt there's going to be a title shot on the line here. I mean, the winner of Alexander Rakic versus Jan Blachowicz, if it's Rakic, probably gets a title shot. Now, if it's Jan Blachowicz, maybe the winner of this has a chance. Thiago Santos beat Jan Blachowicz. If Ankalaev wins, he'll be 17-1 on a big streak. Maybe he could get a title shot. Who knows? But if Rakic wins his next fight, he's getting a title shot at light heavyweight next. And I do believe that Magomed Ankalaev's going to win this fight against Thiago Santos. I don't like Thiago Santos recently. I mean, even in hindsight, his Johnny Walker performance looks shit. Even if he won. To not destroy Johnny Walker at this point is starting to look quite bad. Let's be real. I think Thiago Santos is too hesitant. He has no ligaments in his leg. We know that. So I'm going to trust in Magomed Ankalaev chopping at his legs early on, maybe taking a couple of decent shots from Santos early in the first round where Santos goes a bit buck wild, looking for a finish. But watching how much Glover exposed a lack of ground game in Thiago Santos, I could see Ankalaev mixing in some takedowns here, finding his way into top position, landing some good shots there. He was able to control a great jiu-jitsu specialist at light heavyweight like Paul Craig until the very last second of the third round. No idea why he tapped to this day. 1 second left. risk going out cold. It's a triangle choke. You're not going to die. You know what I mean? Don't lose on your record. That stains him forever. He could have been undefeated right now. But either way, I'm going to trust Magomed Ankalaev. Very patient on the feet. Doesn't rush his work. Likes to play the counter game as well, which I think works against Thiago Santos. We've seen Thiago Santos be more effective when he has a bruiser coming forward against him like a Jimmy Manuwa or a Jan Blachowicz, where he can catch them on the counter shots and then follow up afterwards with big combinations to get finishes. I think Ankalaev being patient is going to lead to a slow-paced fight, which means it's going to be in Ankalaev's favour. He's going to be chopping at range on the feet, landing some good jabs here and there, maybe get clipped with some big shots from Santos, eventually finding himself a takedown. I think he's going to be ahead in rounds. Santos comes in reckless. Ankalaev gets on top, lands big shots at ground and pound, and I can see like a late second round ground and pound TKO for Magomed Ankalaev here. I think he's going to be able to pass over the guard of Thiago Santos as easily as a guy like Glover Teixeira did in certain moments. So I'm going to trust an Ankalaev to get this one done. Not to mention, Glover Teixeira exposed the bad ground game of Santos and managed to find his way on top whilst semi-conscious after being dropped by Santos early on. So I'm going to trust an Ankalaev. I think it's a perfect style for him, and I think he gets this one done. Should he be that big of a favourite? Probably not. Here we are anyway. I'm not going to let it make me pick the underdog. Although Santos is a decent underdog here, purely because of the odds. I'm not having it sway me. Ankalaev wins this fight 7 or 8 times out of 10, I would say. Very good performance I'm expecting, and I'm expecting a finish as well. Ground and pound TKO for Magomed Ankalaev. And I think he'll move on and do quite well, but it's just going to be that next step up to where we don't really know where he's going to stand against the Rakic's, the Jiří Procházkas, and the Glover Teixeiras. So we'll see how things go. Of course, Nikita Krylov gave him a tough fight, but that was an offensive grappler. So maybe you have to be a bit more of an offensive grappler to mix it up against Ankalaev and make him worry about certain things. Santos is way too patient. Ankalaev won't have to worry about much. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.